Herzlich willkommen zum Thanks Day, World Day of Single Parent Families and Friends. Mein Name ist Maria Stern, ich bin Founderin des Thanks Day. Heute begrüße ich Yulia Arnautova aus Vilnius. Yulia Arnautova studierte Linguistik und ist Lehrerin für Spanisch und Englisch. Und gleichzeitig ist sie Chefin der PR-Abteilung der Organisation Nasilju Niet Center. Nasilju heißt auf Russisch Gewalt und Niet heißt Nein. Und ja, es ist eine russische Organisation. Dear Julia, can you please tell us a little about the general situation in Russia right now? About the effects of social crisis like the corona pandemic, of course, Putin's invasion in Ukraine, also the war in Israel and Palestine, and recently the death of Alexei Navalny. What is the general situation now in Russia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for having me. The general situation, even before all those events, was not so obvious because actually the problem is that in Russia we still don't have this law about domestic violence, which means that our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our police, don't really collect the statistics, so we can guess the whole situation because we do need some numbers, some figures for that. So even before there were definitely some bad things happening, and very often it was hard to find research to find some accurate numbers of the number of cases and so on. But we from our work can definitely say that after the beginning of the pandemic first, there were more cases of violence, which was really logical, obvious, and it was throughout the world like that because people just had to stay together in this closed space. And I must say that in Russia, we have on the one hand, it's very common to have your own flat, your own house or flat, which is a good thing, but very often those are very small houses and flats, and very often they can be not just husband and wives living, but there also can be their parents, somebody, so it can be it can be pretty hard to stay together in this space. And there were a lot of cases when really there was domestic violence, which was pretty severe, which was physical and so on. And also with children, it could be also like that, of course, unfortunately. There were a lot of divorces as well, but I guess these trends were pretty global, and they were also pretty logical in those conditions. As for the beginning of the war, we were very surprised because our statistics in the center didn't change so much. I will just explain that the center provides help for domestic violence survivors, and will provide psychological and legal help. And the thing is, the truth is that we didn't see a big raise in these numbers of people who turned to help for help to us, but it's really also explainable because first of all, historically we worked only in Moscow, and we know that from Moscow actually not very many were taken to war. Because Putin tries to make it not visible in Moscow. Secondly, of course, not so many people have returned because we know that men who were mobilized to go to this war, special operation, they didn't return. So it's a very it's actually an amazing thing because only people who were enrolled from prisons, they return half a year after. But people who were just mobilized can't return home. They can return if only they are seriously wounded. And that's why we haven't seen those numbers going by because, of course, those men are still there. So or just not alive already, actually, because we don't know the exact numbers also. That's why, of course, we are expecting some really bad consequences as it was always historically after all the conflicts, but we expect them when people go back passively, because now there is not even a rotation. They just stay there until they get wounded or killed. That's it. That's why now, as for this war, there are no consequences which are really seen. As for Navalny's death, now it's very amazingly hard to understand people's moods, because in Russia now, you really can't speak out if you don't agree with the official line. And we could see that a lot of people came to his funeral, and a lot of people then started shouting like no to war, no to Putin. And of course, all those people who came for Navalny's funeral, of course, they all have anti-war position, anti-Putin's position. But it's really so hard to say about the numbers, because like in my bubble, in my surrounding, of course, everybody is just completely like terrified, not just against, but terrified of what is happening. At the same time, I understand that this is also some Moscow bubble of people with high education, so on. It's also difficult to say. That's why we really need statistics. And I also know that when there are some telephone surveys, for example, people really speak for the war just because people who are against don't answer the questions. So you can't, because I have a friend who works in this like survey center, and she tells me every time that people who really agree to speak say some amazingly cruel things, that they support it and so on. But the majority of people just don't continue the conversation. So I understand that those people at least don't support what's happening, but we don't know for sure, because we really can't. And for people, it's now amazingly dangerous to express their opinion, even on social networks, because in Russia now there is, for many years actually, there has been a special division of police. I'm not sure if it's police, if it's connected with police directly, but there is a special center called anti-terrorist. And the real thing, the real idea of this center is that they, the whole day, they just look through some like networks, social networks, and they just try to find some, I don't know, posts, some communications that don't go in line with the official statements, and they report, and people at least can be fined, but also some people go to jail for that. And the thing is that this thing is quite random, so you never know, because it's not like Stalin time, of course. It's not so massive, but it's random, and you never know. Maybe it will be exactly you who will go to jail for a post, because we already have Sasha Skarchelenko, if I'm not mistaken, who is a painter, and she, when the war began, she just made some. She went to the shop and she sticked like
I know.
those,
I
yeah,
saw it.
made
I
those
read it.
stickers.
Yes, yes.
Yes, so she just put stickers of this like Ukrainian flag, and now she is in jail for seven years, if I'm not mistaken. And she is a very sick person. She has a very bad physical condition, and still she is in jail for just putting stickers in the supermarket. That's why it's so random that people are afraid. So it's really hard to say. But what we really saw that in terms of domestic violence, that in the pandemic, people really came to us more actively. And now the dynamics is pretty much the same, but we understand that people just the men haven't just come back home. That's why it's really hard to say now. So, and also we just after the beginning of the war, we had a couple of cases. Some of them were completely amazing. For example, a man hit his wife like really hard because she was Ukrainian, and he understood that she was a Nazi.
Yes,
Before
of
that,
course.
yes, before that, they had been living together for a long time. They had gone to Ukraine to her family. There were no problems at all. But then propaganda told him that all the Ukrainians are like that, and he decided to hit his wife. But it was just one case. And also there were a couple of cases when parents and children had different political views, and also parents could apply violence to children because there were some heated conversations, and also it could lead to physical violence. But still, those cases are not like numerous. But unfortunately, I think that we will see all of them in the future when there is this rotation, or when just the men come back.
Right, like it was after the Second World War in Austria and Germany, and also when you see in Yugoslavia, everywhere, of course, they're traumatized and then they
Yeah.
come back, and yeah,
I also saw
then
some
they
American.
actually need huge help to get back to their normal lives.
Yes, I saw also some American surveys just because America like does a lot of social studies,
Yeah,
and they
right. Also,
also analyzed people after Iraq, after Afghanistan,
yeah,
and they
right,
all came to the same conclusion that there
right,
was a lot of domestic violence, sexual violence, street
right.
violence, which is so logical, because
Yeah,
if you are used to killing and if the value of life does no longer like exist for you, of course it's the like clear road to violence. So unfortunately it really happens because people like they just change their values very much. That's why it leads to
right,
that.
right, right. That's also the point, making soldiers different people, that they are able to do certain things.
Yeah.
And what is now the situation, for example, for mothers who have children when they want to get divorced? What is the situation for them now in Russia?
For mothers,
Yeah.
usually when people get divorced, like in I don't know exactly in how many percent of cases, but in the like vast majority of cases, children stay with mothers.
Mm.
And usually in Russia, courts are like in this respect, like are siding with the mother. But also, and the thing is that sometimes men try to manipulate women. When women start to speak about divorce, they say like, "I will take out, like I will like give the children away from you, take the children away from you, or something." And usually this is just a manipulation because not a lot of fathers are really ready to raise kids. And unfortunately, also it's a big thing, and it's a very big paradox because now all this Russian mass media, this propaganda mass media, talk about these traditional values all the time, that we are such family guys and so on. At the same time, we really can see that in Russia, unfortunately, men don't take as much participation in their kids' life as they should because they're parents just like mothers. And actually, a very typical situation is just to see a single mother struggling raising kids herself. Very often, she needs to apply like to go to court for alimony, and I even saw the numbers of alimony debts, and it's just amazing because we have some huge amazingly big like numbers of alimonies of the money that of alimony debts, the money that hasn't been paid by dads. And moreover, like from year to year this number grows. So like
Yes.
usually, unfortunately, men are not eager to also like to support their children also financially. So it's like a big thing, and it's a very common situation. And I also saw this. Of course, it's also like it can't be said about all the people. And of course, there are some cool dads, some really good like husbands. Of course, like we understand it. And moreover, I think that the younger generation is really more like pro-European. They are more about these partnership relationships. They are more about sharing responsibilities, and I really see it. It's really good. But still, like if we speak about the whole society, unfortunately, like the percentage of these people is not yet so big. And I even remember a case, like a personal case. I have a friend, a man who has two daughters, and he's a very keen dad. He loves his daughters. Like he's constantly with them, like making hairstyles for them and so on. And once one of his daughters got ill, and they went to hospital, and he was in hospital with her, like staying for 2 weeks or something, like when you have to sleep also in this hospital. And he was actually very annoyed because everybody was looking at him as if he was a kind of unicorn or something. They were saying like, "Oh my God, you're a dad, but you are with Dot in your hospital," because it's usually months like prerogative to be there. And he was even annoyed because like, why are people so surprised? He's a parent, and every time, at first it seemed like nice to him, but then this kind of surprise really began to be annoying. So unfortunately, we still have this kind of thing. And also before this interview, I talked to our psychologists and lawyers in our center who deal with domestic violence survivors like directly, because I don't do it yet because I work in PR, so I don't usually talk to people who turn to us for help like directly. And yes, they also said that usually, yes, like single mothers, and very often it's hard. It's a big challenge to ask for this alimony, for this money, and women very often come to our center for help, for our lawyers to help with those lawsuits, with those applications to court, to to get this money for their children. And like the worst situation is when a child has some like some health issues, or maybe some like is like mentally challenged or physically challenged. And then this is the worst, because usually like also those women are usually like very stressed, and usually it's like it's a very common situation when women raise such children alone, because very seldom those families like stay, unfortunately.
And when the children or the mothers don't get alimony from the fathers, what happens then? Does the government give anything instead, or do they just get nothing?
We like theoretically have some dotations from the government, but the numbers are very like ridiculous, because it can be less. I'm not even sure it's enough like for maybe it's not for food, but for very like simple food, because and you should be very healthy because there is no extras to get medication or medical services or something. But we know that children usually require like a lot of things. So like technically we have some donations, but the real thing is that usually they are not enough. And very often those mothers, it's a very, I think it's a very big sign, like a very like symbolic thing that very often, for example, in Russia, we give away clothes for children. Like for if somebody has a child, then this child grows up, and these clothes go to like another person. And usually there is somebody in your surrounding to whom you can give these clothes. So like people don't say no, because sometimes they really can't afford it. And very often it really like happens like this, because yes, there are some payments, but those payments are not enough for sure. And usually like if you go to court to ask for alimony, usually the court really like satisfies this like lawsuit. So usually the dad is supposed to give it, but sometimes they just don't do it, and still you have to struggle somehow. And in Russia we have like, I think, an amazing saying. If God gave you a rabbit, it will give you grass to feed it. It's in Russian. It's dal Bог zайку, даст и лужайку, which is to me the most childish way of thinking, because this just like, I don't know, eliminates all the responsibility. It means that the most important thing is just to give birth to a child. Then somehow things will work out for you. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, of course, because usually somehow things don't work out for you, or they don't work out the way you would love to. And we do have it. And now we also have this situation a lot, that we are now like, our government is fighting against abortions very much. Luckily, they are still legal. You still can do it, but it's really getting harder and harder. And this trend has been like for a while already, and now it's like it's getting more intense. And that's exactly what they say. Like they say, they are trying to bring people back to some like very patriarchal values, because recently one of the people in the government, a woman, said something like that girls shouldn't go to universities because it's stupid, because usually people don't work according to their profession. And why is it just about girls? I don't know, because men also go to universities, yeah, guys, and they also can get like a job that is not connected with their education. Also, there was a case when they said like that the best age for giving birth to the first child is 19, and the best thing is to give birth to 3 or 4 children. So at the age of 19, you start. You don't obviously you don't get your education, and then you just become completely dependent on your husband, because you have 3 or 4 children, you have no education, you have to look after them, and they're constantly ill or something, because they're children, of course, like it happens every time. And it's like it's so controversial to common sense.
Yes.
Instead of telling women that you should be also like partners in this relationship, and that you should be also like independent, it's really good when you have a good husband. I'm all for it. I really like I have nothing against good families, good husbands. My attitude to men is very good. No problem with men. But just in case, you should also be able to provide for yourself and for a child, because if something happens, you will be the one there who will be responsible, who will be adult. And now what we see in all these communications from the government, from state mass media, from propaganda, which is the same as state mass media, it's like really completely reverse. It's really so. But to me, my only hope is that it all sounds so stupid that people can't follow it. I really can't imagine anybody listening to this and saying to his or her daughter, like, "Oh, you don't need university," because that really doesn't make any sense. And in Russia, actually, it has always been a point like to give education to children, because the Soviet Union was really controversial. It really was. Not easy, but still, the level of education was not so bad. And
And women in the Soviet Union, they were the first actually in Europe who could work
yeah,
and who really were emancipated for that
yeah,
time.
that's
And
true. But then
this
Stalin, of
changed
course, fixed it a
totally.
little bit. Yes.
Yeah. And I really wondered when I first saw the pictures of Vladimir Putin half naked, riding a horse, taking a bath in ice water. I just asked myself, well, what is he trying to tell us? And do you think that this toxic masculinity, what he showed at this time, it's a few years ago,
Mhm.
this is actually being a preparation for war?
Uh, I don't think that those things were a preparation for war. For war, there was another thing which was really clear to me and which was very scary. As for there are two topics. First, his really strange behavior in the public, in the media, because for a person who has a little bit some critical thinking, it was really a strange way to see your president. Because presidents should be outstanding with other things, definitely not being able to swim in cold water, I guess. And yeah, for us, of course, it was ridiculous. I even remember our friend from Switzerland came, my friend's boyfriend came to Russia, and he saw when he turned on the TV, he was so shocked, like, "Oh my God, there is only Putin! What's happening?" And we were like, "Yeah, that's why we only watch YouTube, because it's impossible." Uh, it's really it's just amazing, it's hard to
Yeah.
believe when you see it. It's just amazing. Those things were I think they were PR tricks for elderly women, because we must admit that in Russia we have like a very big layer of our population is women over like 50, and very often those women already don't have husbands, and maybe they can see some, even I don't know, some like they can see something like this husband figure, this male figure in him, and actually those women really support him a lot, unfortunately. And we must admit that those tricks worked. So because he really had like those women really support him very often. Of course, not all of them. Of course, there are a lot of women who have completely different opinions. But still, I think those things were PR things, and also they were. Because Putin, from the beginning of his presidency, he understood how powerful mass media are. From the beginning, in his first presidential term, he crashed our coolest channel, which was independent. It was called NTV, независимое телевидение, independent television, if you translate it literally. Because that channel maybe there were also some people who were interested in something. Maybe they were promoting some ideas, I understand. But still, you could see like news pretty like objectively, and there were a lot of programs which were very sarcastic about politicians. Now it's even hard to imagine. Back then we had this kind of TV, and it was one of his first decisions to like dissolve the team of that channel. And now we have this channel, but it's a completely different channel now. So from the very beginning he was working very much on his mass media presence, and he always tried never to be associated with bad news. Whenever we had a crisis, he was never there. He was constantly, he is the good news man. When we had this championship World Cup, he was always there. He was, yeah, like I'm the one responsible for that. When he had some bad news, no, he was not there. He was, it was always like the responsibility of governors, of local government, of anybody, but not him. And those things were also, I think, were attempts to lead this public attention from bad news, from really serious stuff, to something that is clickbait, that is interesting, entertaining, and so on. So those things, I guess, were more for his like this image. And also, he had a very bad, very big contrast with the previous president, Yeltsin, who was actually like liberal. He also had a number of mistakes, actually, but still. But everybody knew that he was like drinking very much, and he was sick. He was really like a very sick person. And he also, I think, those things were to demonstrate the contrast that I'm not like him. I'm young. I'm strong. I don't drink alcohol. I'm like this. And for him, actually, it was flattering. We must admit that really after Yeltsin, it was a cool image. And as for preparation for war, for this toxic masculinity, there was another thing which I noticed, and a lot of people noticed, and for me it was very scary because we have this experience, like a very traumatic experience with the Second World War, which really which is significant for every family, because almost in every family, I think really like 99% of families suffered from that. Either men were killed or they went through this war, and of course it was traumatic experience. There were pictures of men who went to war and who came back from war, and they came back with gray hair, a lot of wrinkles, because it can't be like you can't be the same person after suffering so much and seeing so much suffering. And for us, it was always a big thing. At schools, we have a lot of literature about that. We read poems, we recite poems, we have songs. Like it was always something super tragic. It was always something that everybody is like very serious about. And we had this, always had this 9th of May, Victory Day. I know that in Europe, in many places, it's 8th of May, but still like it's the same, yeah, the same holiday, Victory Day. And it
Not
was
holiday,
always,
but we think about it. Yeah, not a holiday.
yeah, in Russia, it's like a state holiday. Nobody works, like it's a big thing. But even when I was at school, for example, it was like 20 years ago. Oh my God, long ago.
Yes.
I, I just remember the way we spent this day. It was always, we said, it's a celebration with tears in your eyes. We were always saying, never again, never again. Like we can say, like we can have whatever, but not a war. War is the worst. War is something which we should never repeat, never again. And then and this holiday was also with this war songs, like it was festive, but it wasn't like a parade. It was pretty like sad, actually. It was like celebration, but still it was to commemorate people who died. And at some point, I don't remember exactly from what year, but in the like zeros, like 2000s, like at some point it started to become more and more festive. It was like more and more like cool, like, yeah, winners, victory, so festive, tanks, parades, this kind of thing. Fireworks. Fireworks maybe even were before, but it really became very, very joyful. And then they somehow changed this slogan from never again to we can repeat it. And for me, that was the worst thing, especially because they have a lot of like resources, and for example, in some gas stations they started to give those Georgian ribbons, this black and orange thing which is associated with this victory, and people started to attach those ribbons to their cars to see, like, to show their like that they belong to this, that they share this idea. And even they started to distribute stickers with this saying we can repeat it. And when I first saw it on a card, that was my real like that was mind-blowing for me, because I was really shocked, like, how stupid should you be to say we can repeat it? Do you really want to repeat it? Do you really want to sacrifice your life, the life of your children, of your relatives, I don't know, your brothers, fathers, and so on? And this was the big thing. And then he started to take this idea and to turn this idea of victory into this national idea that we are the nation of winners. And that's a very big thing, a very big problem, because in his 24 years of presidency, like there was this break with Medvedev, but it was just, I don't know, just a joke. In all these years, he hasn't really improved people's lives. So there were actually improvements, but they were not his achievements. It was because oil prices were very high, and before that we had really cool economists in the governments. There were cool reforms, and like it all worked out very well for him. And like Moscow really became beautiful and so on. But still, if you look a little bit far from Moscow, a little bit farther, people live in complete poverty. Some of them have to use oil to warm their houses, although we have so much gas in our country. Some of them don't have a warm toilets. They just have to go outside for this, like outside toilet. People really struggle. Some people have to grow vegetables. Some people have to, I don't know, have like chicken or something like that's amazing. So this level of life hasn't increased so much. That's why it's so cool to associate yourself with these winners. And he has been really putting a lot of effort on this idea that we are the winners, because it's also like a fact that when people don't get far in their life, when they're not successful, when they're not happy with what they have, of course they need some idea, like they want to belong to something bigger. And that's the big problem, because he has been really like intensifying this idea of winners, the nation of winners. And that's a big problem. I think that was much bigger than his photos of bears, I don't know, and cold water and everything.
It sounds a little like a religion.
Yeah, actually, yeah,
A
it
little?
is.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union did the same. Actually, it was also like a religious thing, because we still have Lenin in Red Square. We can still go to
Oh,
mausoleum
that's
to
what I
see
wanted
him.
to ask. Years ago, 1986, I was in the mausoleum in the Red Square and I saw Lenin lying there. So he's still lying.
Yes.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
have a lot of debates about that, because progressive people say, like, come on, that's not that's not progressive. Maybe we should bury him after all. And every time you want to have a heated discussion, you can just throw this idea, and people start to argue. Like, but yeah, it's a very strange thing actually to have. And of course, that's very religious. That's exactly how
Yeah.
religion works.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I interviewed a lot of organizations all over the world, and it's clear that single moms and the children are very often affected from poverty and isolation. So in Russia, it's just the same on a very low level, you would say. Maybe not in Moscow and St. Petersburg, but on the countryside. Can you say that?
Yes, I think even in Moscow and St. Petersburg, actually, there are also a lot of families like that. Yes, because there are several problems, because we don't have a very well-working infrastructure for women to be able to work and have children. Because we do have state kindergartens, but very often, especially in Moscow, there are queues to get this place. That's why, and also if a child is ill, you can't take him or her to a kindergarten, so there must be somebody to look after this child, and babysitting is pretty expensive. And if you don't have some relatives, like mothers, for example, sisters, to look after your child, you are really in a very like hard position. That's why, yeah, it can be difficult. Usually women still work because like they don't have many options, but yes, usually it can be difficult. It can also be a problem for a woman to get a job if she has a small child, because employers also understand that probably she will have a lot of leaves with this kid, and they're not so eager to give her a job. Now
And
it's maybe better.
does she get a flat when she's a single mom? Is it also difficult to get a place to live?
But you should pay for it. To rent? No, no, I don't think that it's like hard to rent a flat. You can, but still, like you have to pay for that, of course.
Mm.
If you are like completely in a completely bad situation, there are some crisis centers, but they are also not enough, because like according to Istanbul Convention, there won't be like one bed for 10,000 people of population, and in Moscow we have from 15 to 18 million people, and there is just one state crisis center, which is not enough for sure. There are also some private things, there are also like some different things, but still like it's not enough. And of course there are not enough beds, not enough places for women to live. And yeah, they usually single mothers like are not the wealthiest part of the population, of course, especially also because these donations from the government like are very, very small. So you need to do something. Now a lot of women, first of all, after the COVID especially, it has become more common to work distantly. I think it's a big solution for a lot of women and people in general. And also in Russia now, it's very like popular, it's very common to be a freelancer, and you can do many things. You can give lessons, for example, like freelance lessons, or you can, I don't know, make cakes on nails, because all the women in Russia make nails and it's really common. So like women do whatever whatever, and it can be also clothes, for example. So like there are some options if you, and usually women are very inventive because if you have to survive and provide for your child, you really start to use your creativity.
Tell me
That's
about it. Yeah, I know.
you become very resilient.
I
So
know.
maybe there is some good news.
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you have an idea how many single moms or children do live in Russia? Do you have any idea?
Not really, but maybe we should after like Google to see the statistics.
Right.
But we have a very big divorce rate in Russia. So
Right.
we have
How
like
high? How?
I just recently saw it. It was like 60 or something. I will even
Right.
try to find now, because like a very, very not long ago I saw that it was really big. So that's why very often, of course, in families, I found number one is Portugal in the world, by the way. It's amazing. Why? I don't know. Russia has, oh my God, 73% of divorce rate.
Oh,
73%.
wow.
It's like
Wow.
three, yes, it's like three-fourths.
Yeah.
And of course, some like very often children are born already. So
Yeah.
we have a lot. We have a lot of single moms, and we don't have a lot of single dads, usually single moms.
Yeah, like in Austria. And do you have organizations especially for single parents or not? Because I did not found them. I
Mm,
searched, I'm searching since years, and what I find when I give in single moms, Russia, blah blah, I find dating sites or porn, but I don't find organizations. So do you know if there are organizations?
I'm not sure they are specifically for single moms.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some like social centers, like governmental ones, where you
Mhm.
can get some help. Maybe also there are some centers, for example, for children that have some complicated behavior, so you can like they can stay there for a while, yeah. But it's not something that is like just for single moms. And in our center also we help just all the domestic violence survivors, and there is no like no line between single moms and other women.
Right.
So I don't think that we work much with like with single moms separately.
So after war, we have a lot of work to do.
You don't imagine how much work it has, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is like a joke in Russian: when your place is very dirty, you look at it and you think, should I clean or should I fly away? That's exactly the case, because he somehow managed to break all the social institutions. The worst is the judicial system, for sure, because this is number one thing that should be working, because otherwise your society doesn't function normally. Otherwise people just I don't know, just hit each other and shoot, because
Mhm.
there must be working laws for sure. And
Yeah.
of course, this social support, this like social work is really badly made. And it just somehow, I think it just somehow evolves itself, because not much effort is put there. Also, we have a very big problems with education, because we just have burnout teachers who get very small salaries, who have to do a lot of bureaucratic things, a lot of red tape. And all these programs are so old. They are not adjusted to this new reality. And children don't want to go to those schools. I have a son who is 13, and he's like, it's just like a torture for everybody. I saw when I come to these like parents meetings, I see those teachers who are not interested at all. I see those children who are not interested at all. So we have a lot of things to fix. It's just actually everything because like wherever you look, you find problems. It's just amazing. Also, what the cities look like. Also, we don't recycle garbage. We just don't do it. We sometimes have separate bins for garbage, but it's just for appearance for tourists to think, oh, how cool, because actually then they just go to the same container. You know, I don't even I don't even know like that's amazing. That's amazing. I don't know how much should be fixed. We will really need a lot of qualified people and a lot of time for that because there
And
are
money.
many problems.
And money.
Money also.
When you
Yeah.
have such a high divorce rate, is it a topic in media, or what does Vladimir Putin say about single moms and their children? Does he have any idea how to make their lives better, or is it
Uh,
not a topic?
it's not a topic, of course, because our topic is traditional family values.
Yeah, of
Our
course.
topic is opposing ourselves to the West, which is really immoral. And for me, it's the funniest thing because I've been living in Vilnius for half a year, and before I traveled a lot also to Europe, exactly. And because in the media, they always say something like, in Europe, all the men are gay, you know, something like this. And but we are Russian, we are like cool, we are straight, we are family guys, like we are good. And every time I went to Spain, for example, I just saw communities of fathers with their children, which you never see in Russia. In Russia, you can see a lot of mothers with baby carriages or with children walking. Uh, and for me, it was always like, oh my God, but that's so like opposite. And here in Vilnius, also, I often, very often see dads, granddads with children and grandchildren. They're talking very nicely, and and children, and people treat children differently because in Russia we also have this paradox that. They try to tell us that we should be family guys, that we should have a lot of children, we should care about demography, which also for me is a strange thing because individuals shouldn't care about demography. Individuals should care about their individual great life for them and for their children. It's a very strange motivation to think, oh, my country needs more people. That's why I will give birth to children no matter what. It just doesn't work like that. Never. And
But it also this what you tell is the story always when kings or something wanted to make war. So also in Austria, there were also the imperials were also talking like that. So
yeah.
it's a very old story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually like okay to have more people in your country if you are not talking about a war, if we are just talking about economy, yeah, because you will just have like more working force, more taxes. It's good, but we prefer to send people to war instead of getting taxes from them. That's a problem actually, and because demographically the situation has been really like degrading very much because even without the war and without the pandemic there were a lot of deaths, and actually men live like the age gap between men and women is very big. It's like more than 10 years.
Mhm.
Very often men die because of some bad habits, because of drinking,
Mhm.
precisely. And so like the demography was really getting worse even before, and now I'm just afraid of thinking about this demography because a lot of men have gone to war, and a lot of men have gone out of the country not to go to war. And also my preoccupation is that like after all the wars, very often there is the situation when women start to compete for men, which is also a very unhealthy thing actually, because if you have this imbalance, it will also be a very bad thing for all of them actually. And for me, it's also like it's a very strange way of thinking. Yeah, like let's just make children. What for? Like make children to give to make them live here. Like maybe we should fix it somehow first, and people then will be willing to make children. Yeah, because it doesn't work like that. It's a bad motivation. So
Right.
yeah, in Russia, it's not a topic at all because they always say just about traditional values, about our, I don't know, like Orthodox, amazing Russian soul, how family guys we are, how different we are from those like people who are so gay, you know, in the West. And the problem is that he doesn't feel grounded. He doesn't understand what's going on. I'm not even sure he knows about this divorce rate actually, because he has his reality. He doesn't. It's like he's known not to be able to use the internet. So he gets
Right.
information from special papers, from special people. It's
Right.
really, I'm not sure he knows. And he really has very like big problems with reality, because like all the rest of the things he does is like sometimes ridiculous. He once bought ice cream from a woman, and he paid like 5,000 rubles for that, which is 50 euros. You're like, man, when was the last time you went to a shop? So
Yeah.
this kind of thing, like I'm not sure he really is in this reality. I'm not, but the worst thing is that it all looks insane, but still all the mass media and all those grown-up people support this kind of worldview. This is where the problem is, because you look at them and you can't believe it. Like, oh my God, you are not 5 years old, right? You are grown-ups, and still somehow like this idea of the world continues going. That is amazing, actually.
Yeah. Well, I did a little research and I found out that soldiers most of the time were taken from very poor families, also like in America. And of course, we know the most poor families are single parent families. No,
Yeah.
doesn't matter in which country, in which culture, which religion, it's always the same. So maybe it's too early to ask, but are the most soldiers from Russia taken out of single parent families or not? Or do you know nothing about that
I'm
yet?
not sure about single parent families, but I'm absolutely sure that they are mostly taken from very poor families, because like honestly, it's they really pay big money for going to war. Because for example, like if we don't speak about Moscow, but we speak about some region that is more depressive. Any region almost, the average salary can be like I don't know, 30-40,000 rubles, which is like 300 or 400 euros. And for going to war, they can pay you like 200,000 rubles. It's like I don't know, 8 times bigger. So this money is like impossible for those people. And of course, like very often they just don't have those opportunities. And also another problem is that now like a war production is really like working very much, and people who also were working in some plants, for example, they before they didn't get paid well, but now they started to get paid well. Of course, this like life celebration will not last for long, because anyway the money will never then there can't be like it can't be like this forever. There is some limited amount of money, even if it's big, still it's limited. It's not like I don't know, it's not magic, right? Anyway, you need to get it from somewhere. And now I even like heard that when there are surveys on the phone, very often people say like, yeah, I'm against the war, but I work in this military plant, and before my salary was like this. Now I get like twice or 3 times more. So for me personally, it's a good thing, which is still very immoral, to be honest, because yes, I understand money matters and so on, but you understand the consequences of that, and I think you will not want this money actually, because like it's too much. It's like too dirty, this money, but still. And that's why like he really gives a lot to this. So, and the problem is that now actually like this military thing is the most paid like sector of economy, which clearly demonstrates our priorities. So this is where we are ready to like what we are ready to give money for. This is the problem. And at the same time, they cut spendings on education and medicine. So we are cutting all those social things, but we are just growing this budget for the war.
Okay. Actually, thank you so much for this conversation because I've never heard a woman talking like that in that situation. I heard a lot of interviews, but I think there are really a lot of informations which are totally new for people in Austria. So thank you for that. Um, If you had, dear Julia, one free wish, no matter what would that wish be?
My free wish would be definitely for people to have critical thinking. I'm so tired of uh, completely complete inability to understand something. And it's so amazing. I have my dad who is supporting. It's just my like life story is amazing because my mom is completely like adequate, cool woman who understands everything, who is shocked and terrified. And my dad is the one who is very excited. And it's amazing because and I know it's just not his personal story. I know that there are a lot of people like that. And the thing is that when in the 90s we started finally to get information, even in the 80s it already started to happen.
Right, with
And
God. Yeah.
yeah, and there appeared information about the crimes of this Soviet regime, although not all the information, by the way, because a lot of archives are still undercover and are still not opened, which is a very bad thing, actually. They should be opened for sure. And then my dad was listening to all those news and he was so shocked. He was so impressed. And I just remember that my granddad actually supported Stalin, but I understand it because he grew up in a village. He didn't have any education. So I don't have questions to my granddad. He was really like a very good working man who didn't really take interest in politics or something, who didn't get this opportunity to have this education. And my granddad and my dad were constantly arguing so much. And my dad was always saying how what a criminal Stalin was. Like he was so passionate about it. Now the media has changed its like position, and now he's repeating all the same things. And very recently we had a conversation when I was very angry, but actually now we don't talk about that because it's just really like a road to hell. And I just said, but maybe Stalin is good. And he said, but you know what? He was not so bad because in those times he couldn't like act differently. I was like, oh my God, that's the point where we stop because this is the biggest problem. Uh, if people are told something multiple times with emotions from all the possible sources of information, they really believe. But for me, at the same time, it's still not clear because before I understand, all the mass media were owned by the government. So they were basically the only source of information. And to get some more information, you really needed to be very inventive. You needed to be able to catch those radio frequencies, for example, yeah, like Voice of America or something. So it was a big deal, really. Now we have cell phones, everybody has access to the internet, and still not even trying to look at some other point of view, for me, is really like a crime. For me, it's my biggest wish for people to be more curious and less trusting, because really it's maybe it's also my like professional deformation because I work in PR, and every time I see some news I'm like, who wants me to think like that? because it's usually like this. Like you really need to be very critical about everything because people lie, and mass media are made by people, and it's also like it's good to have it in mind that you can be lied. Yeah, maybe not, maybe everything's fine, but fact check it at least, or maybe you should just doubt it a little bit and just admit it that maybe it's a lie. But that's my biggest wish also as a teacher, I think, because I really want education for everybody, and I really want people to want this education, to want this knowledge. Not
And
just knowledge, but skills for analyzing information.
right. And what do you think are the most important things changing in Russia for single moms and their children? Just when they leave their violent husband
Hmm.
and when they leave your center, what would you wish for them to make their lives more easy?
I wish for them, for sure, to be strong, to be prepared for all the challenges, and some luck to get some really good job to really get in line. Because I also know that the hardest step is always the first step. So if they already had this courage to end this abusive relationship, to turn for help, to start understanding what's going on, usually it's really a good sign that they can continue doing that. And actually, there are a lot of stories when women really can make it. Of course, it's not easy. of course. But still, I think it's really better even to be tired after work or something, but come home and be like safe and sound, be happy, be okay. And for the children, definitely it's the best, because we really talked a lot about children who just witness violence at home, because very often, for example, men don't hit children, but they hit mothers in front of children. And this affects children very much, because mother is just the most important creature in life. And for them, this trauma it will stay for the rest of their life. So it's a big mistake to think that if he doesn't touch your child, it's okay. It's not, because like children feel it, sense it very much. They see it and they are traumatized very much. So I think they really need to be like, also to be persistent, because I know um how convincing men can be, because of course after this tension, violence, they come back with flowers, apologies, saying that it will never
Honeymoon.
do. Yeah. And I understand that it's so, I also understand that women want to believe it. Of course they want to believe it, because they love this man. They have children from this man. Of course you want to believe that everything will be fine, but unfortunately it will not be, because if it's a norm, if it's okay for him to hit, unfortunately, of course, it will be repeated. And I'm really like, I'm very angry when, because we also have this reaction, for example, in social media, and when something like this happens, some violence happens, and there will be somebody who will say, oh, there must be a reason for that. That's the worst, really, because there can be no reason. I know that women
Or
can,
you always need two. That's
yeah.
also something like that.
Yeah,
Right.
because I know that women also can be annoying. Of course, all people can be annoying. Women are people, first of all. Let's not talk about them as some separate group, some separate species. But if your woman is so bad and annoying, you can try to fix it, or you can leave her, but you cannot hit her. That's a very strange idea at all, that you can fix something with hitting people, which is really crazy. So I really wish, and I also wish them to have support and not to face those stupid commentaries from people from, because sometimes those commentaries come from the closest people. That is the worst, when they tell you, but come on, he's a good guy. He gives you money. You don't want your children to be like in a single parent family, right? Or you don't want, like, that's the worst actually, when you do need this support, to face this kind of commentaries from people who are supposed to support you. So I really wish them this kind of thing. But I think the good news is that still, even with all these terrible conditions, I see that people still are coming to this realization. And I really see that a lot of men are actually getting are starting to be pro-fem. I really see a lot of men are really no longer think that if somebody was raped, it was because she was wearing a short skirt or something. So like I really see it, and I just want it to be like faster because
Yeah.
those are great ideas, but I think that
Yeah.
people should like assume them faster a little bit, because still we have a big number of people who don't really understand what's going on.
Yeah. Okay, Julia. Spasiba.
Спасибо. Thank
And
you.
maybe we talk again next year and see what happened until, and maybe all these terrible wars are over. And I wish you good luck.
Yeah,
Anyway,
now there are no signs for that,
no,
unfortunately.
I know.
But it can be so unexpected, because
Yeah,
some things historically are very unexpected.
right.
We have been praying for it like for all this time, and actually even before this started, we were already praying for somebody else to come to power finally,
Right.
because it was obviously very not good for our country. But we thought that we were hitting the bottom,
Mm.
but then the war started, and we were like, that was good, because we were unhappy about what's happening in Russia before. But no, that was good. Now it's really now that's a problem. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, people continue living. Anyway, you should do something, and I'm completely sure that anyway you should also like do your best. Anyway, like that, transmitting those ideas, supporting people who need support, and just maybe trying to spread good information also, but not with those who are too convinced. Like with
Right.
my dad, yeah, with my dad, it's really like a waste of energy for sure. But some people are don't have a very strong opinion. With those people, you can work, and it's also a big contribution, I think.
I've one more question, Julia. The next interview I will do with Ukrainian woman
Mm-hmm.
Luna.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to say her something, to tell her something?
Yeah, that's like
She's a
mm,
single mom working with single moms and telling also about single moms. Maybe when it's too much for you, it's okay, but yeah, would be an opportunity to connect, not to do the stupid things which are happening right now, but just to say hello or I don't know.
yeah, it's so hard because of course, like we support them, like we really want it to have like to end. Yeah, like for us it's as tragic as for them, and we have a lot of friends in Ukraine. That's the worst. We have a lot of families, like my very close friend is a Ukrainian girl who lives in Moscow, and for us it's like just oh my god, like every time we're I don't know, stay strong.
Okay. Thank you.